Hello everyone, my name is Zeotrex, and today we are taking a look at Deadpool and Wolverine, starring Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman. Wade Wilson faces the threat of messing with time and learns his world is soon wiped out because of it, and he has to recruit Logan to save his world. I was so excited for this going in. It's the return of Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, returning to his role after the character had died in Logan. And well, did it live up to the hype? You bet it did. It is an amazing movie. It's awesome. I had such a fun time in the theater yesterday. And hold on, let me put Deadpool. Okay. It was such a fun time in the theater yesterday. And after watching this movie, I don't know what to do now. Because, like, I watched it. I watched, like, the biggest movie of the summer. And now I have no idea what to do going forward. So, uh, it's everything I wanted. It's a cameo fest that actually works. It's good. It's a good cameo fest. Unlike something like The Flash, where it's like, hey, there's Superman. There's there's Christopher Reeve's Superman. We're bringing him back from the dead to milk it. It's respectful with its cameos, and they serve a purpose to the story. It's a fun, heartfelt adventure that was a perfect tribute to the Fox era of Marvel movies. Before the MCU. And it's kind of like how No Way Home was sort of a celebration of Spider-Man movies. This is just a tribute to the Marvel movie history as a whole. The writing in this movie is fantastic. Every single joke landed with the theater, and maybe a bit too well because sometimes they just kept laughing and laughing. There was this girl really loud. Also, there was a baby. Why did you bring your baby to Deadpool? You're a bad parent for that. The constant lightning rounds of references were great. I also love the jabs that they did to Disney and to Fox. There was a joke in the movie where we first meet Logan, and he like Deadpool first like sees that he has the costume on, and then he's like, well, it took 20 fucking years. Yeah, it didn't disappoint. They jab at Disney, they jab at Fox, and this is a really funny movie. And I'm glad they allowed them to get away with a lot of the stuff they say. A lot of that humor comes from the fantastic actor that is Ryan Reynolds. And I'm not sure how much he improvised in this movie. There was a strike that happened um with it. And so I'm not sure how much that had to play with the just the writing process and improv. Either way, I think the way he delivers these lines are fantastic, but that is not to discredit Hugh Jackman at all. He does a great job. He's a much more depressed Wolverine. He let his X-Men down, and that's why he wears the suit actually. He wears it because it reminds him of the X-Men that he had, and it only took 24 fucking years for him to wear a costume that he sort of wears in the comics. And while I have a few complaints with the costume, it's a bit over designed. Um, I wish they chose whether or not to have the blue rib cage or the black stripes. They went for both, and I'm not a fan of that. Um, I think it's a great costume either way because we finally get it. He looks like Wolverine. Um, my favorite scene with him was in the car, and he's yelling at Deadpool to like shut the fuck up. He's so annoying. He's such a miserable piece of shit and all that. He gives it his all. He acts his ass off in that scene. And throughout the movie, he has these constantly teary eyes to show the struggle that he went through. Visually, this movie was great. There were a lot of complaints about the color grading, but those guys are miserable as hell and don't know how to have fun. And literally, all they did was complain about the movie before it even came out. So, to those guys that are complaining about the movie for being corny and wacky, lick my ass. The CG at points did look off, but it's a Marvel movie. That's just the new norm. I want normal beer. This movie just felt like, playing with action figures. Like, hold on, perfect example. Like, let's get Spider-Man up here, right? He doesn't show up in the movie, but let's get Spider-Man and Deadpool and just make them duke it out like a Marmaduke. I gotta be careful; these are bobbleheads. Um, but yeah, in a good way, and I think that's the best way to handle doing a Marvel, not a Marvel movie, but a comic book movie, because while having more serious comic book movies proves really well, like Logan and Dark Knight and all that, this is a comic book movie in the best way possible. It's not like Venom, where it's not a good movie, but it's a fun movie. It still has emotion and heart. I was just constantly jittering around in my seat because of how amazing the movie was. Let's talk about the villain. So Cassandra Nova, she's the twin sister to Xavier. She doesn't get enough screen time, but I do think that the little screen time we do of her is fun. She is in the Void. I don't know if she's like the. I don't think she's the leader. I kind of forgot about that, but who she hunts people down who like are in the Void. It's kind of like a Mad Max like thing, but that's copyright infringement. After the third act though, she kind of just she doesn't disappear. She sort of just becomes someone in the background. Like they don't fight her or anything. Um, they're supposed to stop something against her. It's also really cool to see the TVA on the big screen. They see that we see that world expanded much more, and it doesn't connect to Loki that much. I mean, there's like one character from Loki that shows up. I think it was fun. It was a nice touch, and there was actually a comic series today since Comic Con's going on about the TVA. It has like a Spider Gwen in it. It's like different people having to like overlook different timelines. And Captain Carter though, please fuck off. Deadpool and Wolverine is just an amazing bridge between the Fox era of Marvel and the new Disney era of Marvel. It's a funny film that knows how to take itself seriously, and there were so many things I love in this movie. The cameos, which is something I've been avoiding to talk about until spoilers, were done so well. They serve an actual purpose to the story instead of just, hey, recognize him? Yeah, he's back. Like, what other Marvel movies have done before? Like, Multiverse of Madness, for example, kind of fell into that. I mean, the Illuminati did serve a purpose in the story, but it did feel like cameos. Like, why was Beast at the end of the Marvels? Like, I don't know. I guess I'm a bit impatient. It doesn't even connect to this film. We don't see Beast at all. I just hope, they all have whatever. This movie is what Multiverse of Madness was expected to be, and is what The Flash wanted to be. I'm going to give this movie an A. I'm not putting it up right now. Something happened with my computer. All right, let's talk spoilers. So, something I noticed with this movie was the connection to the MCU. So, it's connected to the MCU for sure. It's mostly through the TVA. We see like Avengers stuff. There's like an ongoing joke where like Thor was crying over Deadpool's death in the future. But in terms of like where this movie actually takes place, it's not in the MCU. Like, there's only one scene where Wade actually is in Earth 19999. I refuse to call it 616. And that's him, like, talking to Happy Hogan, who I thought was going to be, like, who I thought was being Jon Favreau, and Kevin Feige was going to show up. I thought they were going to do that, but no, it's just Happy Hogan. He then jumps back to his world and stays in the Fox universe at the end of the movie. Like, it's not like Ultimate like Secret Wars, for example, where at the end of that Miles Morales is just in Earth 616 and not 1610. I thought that's what they were going to do, where Deadpool and Wolverine are brought to the MCU world. No, this is very much this is still kind of a Fox movie. Again, the biggest connection that makes this an MCU movie is the TVA. But yeah, and that's why he wanted Wolverine. He wanted an anchor, which is another point I will talk about in a minute. To um, he wanted an anchor so his universe didn't die. So the Fox universe is still alive, I think. I don't know. There's something with Days of Future Past I haven't seen. Um, it's the first MCU movie to just not take place in the main universe that the MCU has, which is what Fantastic Four is set out to be. I think. I do think the anchor points are a bit silly. If a character was such significance to the world that if they die, the entire universe dies with it. I feel like I don't want to say that destroys some storytelling potential, but kind of putting it in DC terms, like what if you had this like anchor point was D? That means you can't do a story like Death of Superman, for example. I keep pointing to this. Look at this thing. This thing's so awesome. It's a Superman statue I got at GameStop. So awesome. But yeah, I think the anchor point is a bit silly. Um, let's talk about cameos. Why not? Cassandra's cameos, like the her gang, there were a lot, and they didn't even play that big of a role in the story, which is completely fine. It's just again a love letter to X Men. We get to see Aziel, we see Psylocke, we see Juggernaut, like the Last Stand Juggernaut, not Deadpool 2 Juggernaut. Toad, Sabretooth. I watched the first X Men movie, so seeing those guys were great. It's just awesome seeing all the Fox X Men movies villains appear again. I'm a bit sad that like Magneto or Mystique didn't show up to complete it, but they mentioned that Magneto's like dead. I'm not sure if it's like Ian McKellen or Michael Fassbender Magneto, but again, such a love letter. Sabretooth versus Wolverine was a bit short lived, however, but it was great seeing them actually fight this time. The Happy Hogan cameo, like I mentioned, pretty fun. And let's talk about the Deadpool variants. They were really fun. Lady Deadpool, played by Blake Lively, she doesn't take her mask off, but really fun seeing her. I'm actually a bit disappointed they didn't play a larger part of the story, considering how big of the marketing material they were. Dogpool, I love Dogpool. Headpool, Cowboy Deadpool, Kidpool, Babypool. I mean, they're just little fun Wolverines, but not Wolverines, Deadpools. But what's really important about that scene in Marvel history, they walk up to him. They walk up to them, right? And they have Madonna music. He wears the mask! He finally does it! 24 years! He wears the iconic mask. Imagine if they did this with Spider-Man, right? He wore black leather, or he was just Peter Parker for most of the time, and he wore like some ski mask. And then they did a movie, Deadpool and Spider-Man, and he finally wears the Spider-Man suit. That's essentially what that is for Wolverine, although Logan does have the privilege of kind of just wearing a tank top, and you're like, yeah, that's Wolverine. But he finally wears the mask, and I lost my shit during that part. It looks great on him. And it just looked so unreal. I think it was touched up with CGI a bit. Also, it looked blue at some points. I think it's black and blue, like black with a blue hue. But man, it was so amazing seeing him finally wear the mask after so long. And he doesn't have the sleeves on. It's this scene right here where he does it. Although, wait, is it? I'm trying to analyze it doesn't he doesn't have it, but 20 years and he puts it on. It looks great. The eyes, I think the eyes look great, and I've always wanted to use eyes as a point to prove that Batman could have the eyes. I think this is just the best version we see of him, and it's not even the only version we see of him in this film. We actually got a lot of like so they're in the earlier in the movie he's like, okay, I gotta go find a Wolverine, and he travels through the multiverse. There was a short Wolverine. That was the first Wolverine he meets, and that was funny because he's short in the comics. He jokes about the comic accuracy height. There was the fucking Hulk suit. Let me pull that up. Oh, he fell down. There was the fucking like Hulk suit. Let me see if best like panel I can get of it. That suit. I don't know. It glares. He wears that suit. We even see Hulk in that scene. We see Henry Cavill, Wolverine, great. Old Man Logan, like actual Old Man Logan. The One Eye Wolverine, which I want to say is a Fortnite reference, but it's not. I may not have recognized some if they were supposed to be like recognizable, but it was still a fun like treat, and it had my theater cracking up and cheering, and just like these cameos. So midway through the movie, Deadpool and Wolverine are taken to this underground bunker where we see Elektra, played by Jennifer Garner, in her return. That was cool, but they top it in the next minute because Wesley Snipes as fucking Blade shows up and everyone loses their shit. It was amazing because I think there was drama between Ryan Reynolds and Wesley Snipes in real life, and it's just great seeing them make up like that. But it's also just great seeing like Blade on the big screen again after so long, especially since our movie's in development. Hell, there's more though. We see a card. I smile really, really wide. Fucking Channing Tatum as Gambit. He is beautiful. It was so fucking. He has his pull. He has his card. He has his eyes. His costume. The accent is amazing. I love the dialogue and jokes they make about Gambit's accent. Like, for example, Deadpool is like, "Who's your dialects coach? The fucking minions?" Like, that's fantastic. I love that they did that. If I God, if I had one little nitpick, I'm not gonna fault it. I wish Rogan, not Petit, Jubilee were in because I would have loved to see those characters interact. Rogue, Gambit flirting with each other, like Gambit calls Jubilee petite. Like I would have loved to see more like of those just to see the comic costumes because Gambit looks fucking amazing. The colors are a bit dull. I'm not sure if that's just the movie or whatnot, but the colors are a bit dull. But I don't care. I'm not gonna complain because we're getting it. He's had such a hard time trying to play Gambit. He was supposed to be in X2. He didn't show up. He was supposed to have his own solo movie that got canceled. I don't even know about X-Men Origins Wolverine. I never finished that piece of shit. Everyone cheered these cameos, except for X-23. X-23 would have had a much bigger impact had she not been spoiled in the trailers. That was it was nice connecting it to Logan in some way though, kind of honoring the legacy of it, even if the movie does begin with him. Uh, Really fun opening sequence and really hilarious to see his adamantium skeleton. That was took me by surprise. Again, I wish we got to see more of the X-Men because we got that little glimpse with Gambit. But I hope Secret Wars has brings in the rest of the X-Men. We get to see Rogue in her costume, Jubilee with her yellow jumpsuit, Beast shows up. I trust Kevin Feige with that because he's so connected with X-Men and like his like comic accuracy stuff. I think is gonna go over well. He's the perfect cast in my opinion. There's also a joke that Blade makes about him being the only one, and you know what? He may as well be, since that more Ali movie is never fucking come out. That movie was announced in like what 2019. Now about last year. Probably release date for 2026. We're never getting that movie. How did I forget to mention this? Chris Evans is in this movie. They do this amazing thing where like they meet him and it's like, oh shit, Captain America's back finally, woohoo! He yells "Flame on!" and the theater screams. It was phenomenal. He and Johnny Storm return. That was such a fun way of doing it, playing with his roles like that. Flame on, man. Yeah, he's fucking back. And if you couldn't tell, I just love this movie. It's an award for being a massive Marvel fan, and is a movie for those who grew up with the original Marvel movies back then. If Secret Wars wants to do the cameo route, do it like this, please. They should look at this movie. The credits also prove this very well. Showing a montage reel of behind the scenes and just the history of the Fox X-Men movies, it was really sweet. I love that they did that. They're not the best movies. I'm not a big fan of the original trilogy, but I mean, I never grew up with that X-Men. I was more connected to Wolverine than the X-Men, but a lot of people grew up with those X-Men movies. Much like the Tobey Spider-Man movies or Daredevil or whatever. Those were the exposure for these characters to a lot of young people back then, and it allowed them to branch off and get to know more about these characters. I'm glad that the X-Men are in much better hands with the MCU, but we'll mostly miss the Fox era. Origins Wolverine, Last Stand, all of y'all can fuck off. But we will have a very special place in our hearts for this. Post credits, they're nothing too special. It's just showing us. It's just Deadpool showing us like what Johnny Storm actually said, and it was like shit that got. It was like that he dies in this movie very gruesomely, and it was because Deadpool lied about some things to get him killed. And then the post credits is just him showing Johnny Storm getting like him saying the stuff he said. Yeah, and I thought it was funny. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm sorry for being gone for so long. My last review was Godzilla X Kong, and I've just really been out of it. Not much movies have come out this year that I've been particularly interested in. A lot of money issues. We've been really fucking struggling this year, and my mental health especially. I know I mentioned it a lot, and it's like, oh my god, Logan, get a fucking therapist. My mental health really took a massive shit this year. Lost any sort of motivation to do anything. I'm not gonna vent, but I'm just explaining. I have a big video coming up within the next month or so, next few weeks. I don't know when, but it's a pretty big one, and I'm hoping to do more like that. But until next time, let's fucking go.